In the heart of Beverly Hills, behind hedges that tower more than 20 feet into the California sky, stands one of the most mysterious and impenetrable private estates in America. Hidden from public view at 1801 Angelo Drive, this sprawling compound represents more than just extraordinary wealth. It embodies the transformation of American power from the golden age of Hollywood to the digital empire of e-commerce. This is the story of the Jack Warner estate, now the silent fortress of Jeff Bezos, the retail king who changed how the world shops. The tale begins not in the age of Amazon, but in the roaring 20s, when Hollywood was still finding its voice. In 1926, a brash studio executive named Jack Warner made a decision that would echo through nearly a century of American history. Warner, one of four brothers who had clawed their way up from poverty as sons of a Polish immigrant shopkeeper, purchased 3 acres of former farmland in Benedict Canyon, just north of the newly fashionable Beverly Hills Hotel. The land cost him relatively little, but what he would build upon it would become legendary. Warner's story was the quintessential American dream. The Warner brothers had entered the movie business in 1904 by purchasing a single Nickelodeon in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Jack himself entertained audiences during intermissions, a natural showman even then. For 2 decades they struggled, expanding into film distribution with varying success. By 1923 they had formed Warner Bros., but remained a distinctly second-tier studio. Their biggest star was a German shepherd named Rin Tin Tin. Times were so difficult that Jack Warner sometimes left his office through the back door to avoid creditors waiting in the front lobby. But 1926 marked a turning point. Warner Bros. Was about to revolutionize cinema with the introduction of synchronized sound. The Jazz Singer, released in 1927, would change everything. As Warner's fortunes soared, so too did his ambitions for his Angelo Drive property. In April 1928, Jack Warner, his first wife Irma, and their son Jack Jr. moved into a magnificent 15-room Spanish colonial revival mansion. The house and gardens had cost $250,000, an astronomical sum for the era. The estate sat on what had grown to 4 acres, positioned next door to Harold Lloyd's famous Greenacres estate. Warner took an unusual approach to creating his domain. Unlike most Hollywood moguls who built their palatial estates all at once, Warner expanded his property piece by piece over more than a decade, mirroring the growth of his studio empire and his evolving personal life. He purchased adjacent parcels of empty land. On some, he built a private 9-hole golf course. He bought the mansion next door and had it demolished simply to enlarge the grounds of his estate. Each acquisition was another statement of power, another declaration that Jack Warner had arrived among Hollywood's elite. By the mid-1930s, however, Warner's personal life had changed dramatically. His marriage to Irma had ended, and in 1936 he married Ann Page, an occasional screen actress from the South. Warner decided that his 10-year-old Spanish-style mansion reminded him too much of his failed first marriage. More importantly, the Spanish colonial style that had been fashionable in the mid-20s now seemed dated. Warner wanted something grander, something that spoke to old money and established social position rather than nouveau riche Hollywood excess. He enlisted architect Roland Cote, who was well known in conservative Pasadena circles but had begun working more frequently in flashy Beverly Hills after designing producer David Selznick's nearby home. Warner gave Cote an ambitious commission to completely rebuild the existing mansion in the Georgian revival style. Cote designed a stunning neo-Georgian structure with a front portico featuring 6 Doric columns. The choice was deliberate. Perhaps it was a nod to Ann Warner's Southern heritage, or perhaps Warner understood that Georgian architecture implied generations of inherited wealth and social standing, the very things his humble immigrant background could never provide. The reconstruction was completed in 1937, transforming the property into what would be described as the archetypal studio mogul's estate. The centerpiece was a magnificent 13,600 square foot mansion that revealed itself dramatically only at the last moment, after visitors passed through the Angelo Drive gates and wound up the long driveway. By this time, the estate had grown to more than 9 acres and included not just the mansion but expansive terraces and gardens, 2 guest houses, a nursery, 3 hothouses, a tennis court, a swimming pool, the 9-hole golf course, and a motor court, complete with its own service garage and gas pumps. For the interior, Warner turned to William Haynes, a former silent film star who had reinvented himself as Hollywood's most sought-after interior designer. Haynes was openly gay at a time when that required tremendous courage, and the commission from the Warners, arranged by Ann Warner and costume designer Ori Kelly, would launch him into the Hollywood stratosphere. Haynes created interiors that were not merely luxurious but theatrical. His custom furniture, coffee tables, armchairs, and ottomans was intentionally low, making the rooms, the Warners, and their guests seem larger, grander, more elegant and important. He designed furniture to facilitate conversation, creating chairs and ottomans that swiveled. The entire sofa in the library screening room could swivel into the perfect viewing position for watching films, then return to its normal position when the show ended. The grounds were designed by Florence York, one of California's most celebrated landscape architects, working with her business partner and lifelong companion Lucille Council. Between 1935 and 1937, York created a series of formal and informal gardens that perfectly complemented the neoclassical restraint of the mansion. Like Haynes, York was openly gay, and together these talented artists created what would be called the last intact estate from Hollywood's golden age. The Jack Warner estate became famous throughout the 1930s and 1940s, not just for its architectural splendor, but for the legendary parties that defined Hollywood glamour. On New Year's Eve in 1939 or 1940, actress Olivia de Havilland would later recall, all the men were glorious in white tie. Errol Flynn stood behind the bar, Howard Hughes was her date, and Jimmy Stewart sat on a stool nearby, just the four of them having their first drink of the evening before the party began in earnest. All those beautiful women dressed in wonderful elegance. The estate hosted regular Sunday gatherings featuring the biggest stars of the era. In the 1940s, 300 guests attended the unveiling of Ann Warner's portrait by Salvador Dali. The mansion included a private screening room where Jack Warner conducted business while entertaining, blurring the lines between his professional and personal worlds. Among the most intriguing aspects of the estate's history was its connection to Marilyn Monroe. One of the property's several guest houses was used by Monroe, though the exact nature and duration of her stay has been lost to time, becoming part of Hollywood legend. What's certain is that the estate represented the epicenter of entertainment industry power during cinema's most glamorous era. Jack Warner remained at his beloved Angelo Drive estate for decades, presiding over his studio empire and hosting the glittering parties that made his home synonymous with Hollywood royalty. When he died in 1978, his widow Anne continued to live at the estate, maintaining it as a living museum of Hollywood's golden age until her own death in 1990. The estate's next chapter began when music and film mogul David Geffen purchased the property in 1990 for $47.5 million, including all its furnishings. It was a record price for a single-family home at the time. Geffen understood he was acquiring more than real estate. He was buying a piece of Hollywood history, the last intact estate from the golden era. For 3 decades, Geffen maintained the property with reverence for its heritage, occasionally allowing architectural publications to document its splendor while keeping it largely private. Then, in February 2020, the world learned that Jeff Bezos had purchased the Jack Warner estate from David Geffen for an unprecedented $165 million, shattering all previous records for residential real estate in Los Angeles. The founder of Amazon, at that time the world's richest person with a fortune exceeding $100 billion, had acquired Hollywood's most legendary estate. The sale sparked immediate fascination and controversy. To put the price in perspective, the $165 million Bezos spent on the Warner estate exceeded the amount Amazon would pay in corporate taxes that year. The company would pay $162 million in tax on $13 billion in profit, an effective rate of just over 1%. Critics noted that Bezos had spent more on a single home than his company contributed to the federal treasury. When Amazon shares surged in January 2020, Bezos had made over $13 billion in approximately 15 minutes. The total cost of the estate represented less than 2% of the wealth Bezos had gained in a quarter hour, but this was just the beginning of Bezos's real estate ambitions. Shortly after purchasing the Warner estate, he acquired an adjacent plot of land from the estate of Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen for $90 million, bringing his Beverly Hills investment to $255 million. The Amazon founder, along with his partner Lauren Sanchez, a former news anchor and helicopter pilot, had been browsing Los Angeles real estate for some time before settling on the historic Warner property. What Bezos did next transformed the estate from a preserved piece of Hollywood history into something else entirely, a fortress. Construction began almost immediately, a multi-year effort that would fundamentally alter the character of the property. While Bezos maintained the historic mansion itself, everything else about the estate changed. The already substantial hedges were enhanced and raised higher. New security systems were installed throughout the property. The estate's perimeter became increasingly impenetrable. Artist Sophie Koval, fascinated by the semiotics of power, created a photographic exhibition examining the transformed estate. Her black and white images, displayed at Diaz Gallery in Amsterdam, documented what she called the death of the commons and an ode to oligarchy. Her photographs captured the estate's new reality: stately metal gates obscuring any view up the driveway, poles with multiple cameras peeking into the public right-of-way, and most strikingly, the monolithic hedge following the curve of the pavementless road. At more than 20 feet tall, this hedge is among the tallest residential fences in the United States, a green wall that completely precludes any view into the compound. Koval's exhibition included a property map showing how the massive compound had been assembled lot by lot over a period of 100 years, from Jack Warner's first purchase in 1926 through Bezos's recent acquisitions. The map revealed a startling fact. Bezos's property was roughly the same size as his 28 neighbors' properties combined. The estate, which spans the equivalent of 30 normal Beverly Hills homes, represented an unprecedented concentration of private land in one of the world's most expensive neighborhoods. The artist intentionally ignored the hidden interior that Google satellite imagery readily reveals: the 9-hole golf course, the koi ponds, Marilyn Monroe's guest house, the swimming pools, the tennis and basketball courts. Instead, Koval focused on the boundary, the fortress-like perimeter that cuts the estate off from public visibility and accountability. Her work raised uncomfortable questions about wealth, privacy and power in the 21st century. Here, on Juan Angelo Drive, was an enclosed fantasy world accessible only to one of the planet's richest individuals. Bezos wasn't alone in creating such fortresses. In Palo Alto, California, Mark Zuckerberg was building his own super compound, linking together a portfolio of 11 suburban homes. Local residents complained about private security details lurking on the streets and endless underground excavations being undertaken. The tech media overlords seemed unbound by ordinary constraints like lot lines and the need to respect public space. They were creating kingdoms within cities, private domains that operated by different rules. If you're fascinated by the intersection of wealth, power, and real estate, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more stories about the hidden fortunes and secret estates of the world's richest people. We're constantly uncovering the untold histories behind the mansions and compounds that shape our understanding of modern wealth. While the Beverly Hills estate was undergoing its transformation, Bezos was simultaneously assembling an even more ambitious compound on Florida's Indian Creek Island, known colloquially as the Billionaire Bunker. In June 2023, Bloomberg reported that Bezos and Sanchez had purchased their first property on the ultra-exclusive man-made barrier island near Miami for $68 million, setting a price record for the enclave. The waterfront estate, built in 1965 and expanded in 1985, featured 9,300 square feet, with 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms on a 2.8-acre lot. But Bezos wasn't finished. In October 2023, he purchased the neighboring property for $79 million, a much larger and more opulent 19,000 square foot palace with 7 bedrooms, 14 bathrooms, 3 living areas, a movie theater, and a pool house. Then, in 2024, he added a third Indian Creek mansion for $90 million, bringing his total investment on the tiny island to $237 million. This latest property, a 12,000 square foot mansion with 6 bedrooms and 9 bathrooms built in 2002, would serve as his temporary residence, while the other 2 were demolished and rebuilt into a single mega-mansion. Indian Creek Island itself is remarkable. A 300-acre enclave accessible only by a single guarded bridge. The island maintains its own 13-person police force that scrupulously vets all visitors and patrols the community by land, sea and air, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a veritable fortress designed for the ultra-wealthy. The island's 300-member golf club, which sprawls across most of the land, is notoriously selective. New members must be nominated and make a formal application, with a single no vote sufficient to reject applicants. Initiation fees exceed $150,000, with yearly dues of $16,000. Bezos's new neighbors on Indian Creek represented a cross-section of American wealth and celebrity. Retired NFL legend Tom Brady lived nearby, as did Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, who were constructing their own lavish residence. Colombian banker Jaime Gilinski owned 5 contiguous properties. The island was home to billionaire Norman Brahman, former owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, retired Miami Dolphins coach Don Shula, and singer Julio Iglesias. It was the kind of place where residents know exactly who their neighbors are, creating a tight-knit enclave of the extraordinarily privileged. The move to Florida made financial sense beyond privacy and security concerns. In 2023, Washington state had added a 7% capital gains tax, while Florida has no state income tax. For someone of Bezos's wealth, with billions in potential capital gains, the tax savings could amount to hundreds of millions of dollars. The proximity to Blue Origin's headquarters on Florida's Space Coast was an added benefit, allowing Bezos to stay connected to his space exploration company. While waiting for his mega-mansion to be completed, Bezos spared no expense transforming his temporary $87 million dwelling. Planning applications revealed the extent of the renovations. Hundreds of new trees were planted, including Japanese yews and Brazilian beauty leaves, creating a lush tropical paradise and natural privacy barriers. Several statues were placed throughout the grounds. A private pickleball court was constructed. The paved area surrounding the swimming pool was extended to accommodate an outdoor dining area under a floral canopy. A maze of pathways wound among the trees at the back of the property, creating secret gardens within the enormous 6-bedroom estate. The garage was converted into a private gym with new industrial-strength doors costing upward of $10,000. The transformation of both the Beverly Hills and Florida properties revealed a consistent pattern in how Bezos approached his real estate holdings. Privacy wasn't just important, it was paramount. Where Jack Warner had built his estate to showcase his success and host legendary parties that celebrated Hollywood glamour, Bezos was creating fortresses designed to keep the world out. The towering hedges, the security cameras, the private police forces, all of it spoke to a fundamentally different relationship between wealth and society. This shift reflected broader changes in how America's richest individuals lived. During Hollywood's golden age, studio moguls like Jack Warner understood that their power derived partly from public adulation. They needed to be seen, needed to host parties that reminded everyone of their status and influence. They were creating content that millions of Americans would watch, and their lifestyles became part of that content, part of the mythology that made Hollywood magical. The tech billionaires of the 21st century operated differently. Their wealth didn't depend on public affection in the same way. Jeff Bezos didn't need people to love him personally, he needed them to use Amazon. His power came from controlling infrastructure, from being the platform through which commerce flowed, rather than from personal celebrity. This allowed for, perhaps even encouraged, a more withdrawn existence. Why host lavish parties when you can simply build walls high enough that nobody can see in? Yet there were ironies in this fortress mentality. Bezos was extraordinarily visible in other ways. He appeared at high-profile events, attended the Met Gala, accepted awards, and dated Lauren Sanchez very publicly. In September 2023, they were photographed backstage with the Kardashian clan at Beyoncé's Renaissance World Tour. The month before, they'd been spotted vacationing on Bezos's $500 million superyacht Kourou in Croatia with Katy Perry, Orlando Bloom, and Usher. They attended the Miami Grand Prix, were present at a White House state dinner, and received Conservation International's Global Visionary Award at a New York City event. The contrast was striking. Bezos was willing to be seen in controlled circumstances, at prestigious events where his presence reinforced his status, but his private residences remained impenetrable fortresses. It was selective visibility, carefully managed public appearances combined with absolute residential privacy. This represented a new model of billionaire life, public enough to maintain influence and status, private enough to avoid accountability or scrutiny. The Beverly Hills estate, meanwhile, continued its transformation. Construction that began in 2020 stretched into 2024 and beyond. Aerial photographs showed the sprawling compound taking shape, multiple buildings, elaborate pool complexes with diving boards and shallow lounging areas, sports facilities including tennis and basketball courts, manicured gardens, and the imposing main mansion rising several stories. The property that had once hosted Errol Flynn and Howard Hughes, that had seen Salvador Dali unveil his portrait of Anne Warner, was becoming something else entirely. What was lost in this transformation? The Jack Warner estate had been more than a home. It was a social institution, a place where Hollywood's creative community gathered, where deals were made and relationships forged, where the entertainment industry's elite came together to celebrate their shared enterprise. It was private property, certainly, but it served a semi-public function within Hollywood society. Bezos's fortress served no such function. It was purely private, a retreat from the world rather than a gathering place within it. The parties, if they happened at all, weren't the legendary affairs that defined an era. They were hidden behind walls and hedges so tall that even speculation about what occurred inside seemed pointless. The estate had become, in Sophie Covell's words, a death of the commons. This raised profound questions about wealth and power in contemporary America. When Jack Warner built his estate in the 1920s and 1930s, the gap between the richest Americans and everyone else, while substantial, was nothing compared to today's inequality. Warner was wealthy, certainly, but his wealth was countable in millions, not hundreds of billions. He couldn't have afforded to buy entire neighborhoods or construct fortresses that occupied the space of 30 normal homes. The scale of his wealth, while impressive, remained comprehensible. Bezos's wealth existed on a different plane entirely. With a net worth exceeding $200 billion according to various estimates, he possessed resources that dwarfed anything imaginable in Warner's era. This wasn't just quantitatively different, it was qualitatively different. It enabled a level of separation from ordinary life that previous generations of wealthy Americans couldn't achieve, even if they wanted to. The fortress mentality this enabled had consequences beyond the merely symbolic. When the ultra-wealthy withdraw into compounds patrolled by private security forces, when they purchase property equivalent to entire neighborhoods and turn it into single-family estates, when they construct walls so high that public streets become mere boundaries for private kingdoms, it physically manifests inequality in the urban landscape. The shared public realm shrinks. The commons dies, yet there was also something poignant about the transformation of the Warner estate specifically. This wasn't just any property being converted into a billionaire fortress. This was Hollywood history, a place that had witnessed and helped create American popular culture's most glamorous era. The mansion where Marilyn Monroe had stayed, where the greatest stars of the 1930s and 1940s had gathered, where the transition from silent films to talkies had been celebrated, was now hidden behind hedges designed specifically to prevent anyone from glimpsing it. In some ways, this transformation mirrored broader changes in American culture. Hollywood's golden age represented a moment when popular culture was genuinely shared, when everyone went to the movies, when stars were simultaneously extraordinary and accessible, larger than life but still connected to their audiences. The studio system, for all its flaws, created content meant to appeal to the broadest possible American audience. The digital age that made Bezos wealthy operated differently. Amazon's business model was fundamentally about personalization and atomization. Everyone got their own customized recommendations, their own individualized shopping experience. The platform facilitated millions of separate transactions rather than creating shared cultural moments. In this context, The conversion of a legendary gathering place into an isolated fortress seemed almost inevitable. It was the architecture catching up to the economics. The story of the Jack Warner estate, from its creation in the 1920s through its transformation into Bezos's silent fortress, tells us something important about how American wealth and power have evolved over the past century. What began as a showplace designed to demonstrate success and facilitate social connection became a redoubt designed to ensure privacy and security. The change reflected not just personal preferences but fundamental shifts in how wealth functions in American society, where Jack Warner's estate was built to be seen, to impress, to serve as a stage for the performance of success. Bezos's fortress is built to conceal, to protect, to separate. Where Warner needed his peers and the public to witness his success, Bezos's wealth is so vast and so secure that such witnessing becomes unnecessary, even undesirable. The fortress doesn't need to justify itself because the wealth it protects is beyond justification, beyond anything that public opinion could meaningfully affect. As construction continues behind those towering hedges on Angelo Drive, as the Beverly Hills compound takes its final form, we're left to wonder what exactly is being built there. It's more than a house, more than even an estate. It's a monument to a particular moment in American capitalism, when wealth concentration reached levels that enabled and perhaps required complete withdrawal from the shared public realm. The Jack Warner estate, Hollywood's legendary gathering place, has become the forgotten estate, Bezos's silent fortress, a place that exists in our midst, but is fundamentally separate from the world the rest of us inhabit. The hedges will continue to grow. The security systems will continue to monitor. The compound will remain impenetrable, a green fortress in the heart of one of America's most famous neighborhoods, and we, on the outside, will continue past on Angelo Drive, perhaps not even knowing that behind those towering walls lies one of the most historically significant properties in Los Angeles, transformed from a symbol of Hollywood glamour into a monument to digital age isolation. In the end, the story of this estate is the story of America itself, how we built, what we celebrated, and what we've become. From the dream of an immigrant son who clawed his way to the top of Hollywood, to the triumph of an entrepreneur who built the world's largest online marketplace, the property at 1801 Angelo Drive has witnessed and embodied American ambition across a century. What it means now, hidden behind walls and cameras and hedges that prevent any glimpse of what lies within, is a question worth pondering as we navigate our own age of unprecedented inequality and division. The forgotten estate remains, silent behind its fortress walls, a reminder that the American dream's most successful stories don't always end with the celebration we might expect. Sometimes they end with withdrawal, with separation, with walls built so high that even the memory of what they hide begins to fade. Hollywood's golden age becomes just another chapter in real estate history, another transaction in the endless accumulation of properties and power that defines our Gilded Age. If you found this story fascinating, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We're constantly exploring the hidden histories and untold stories behind the world's most remarkable properties and the people who own them. The intersection of wealth, power, and real estate reveals truths about our society that deserve to be understood. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.